All right, guys. So this is gonna be a review session. So I actually just recorded a 40-minute review session, and then it didn't save. Um, so the good news is I thought it was kind of rambling anyway, so I think I'm gonna be able to give you a more succinct, um, time-efficient version of what I just did. So hopefully I'll be done with this in like 10 or 15 minutes, and it'll be a lot more effective, I believe, than what I did before. So first thing I want to do again is apologize. So like I said in my email, Texas doesn't prepare for sustained cold weather. It's like here they prepare for like one day below freezing, but we're going on like a week below freezing. So what that's resulted in is our power grid froze over. Um, the plants that they use to produce electricity through fossil fuels or other means actually just froze up. So only about 10% of my city has power. Um, it's being restored. Luckily, I've had power the whole time. I was one of the few. Some people I know, um, the coach that I work with in the track facility, he's been without power for like 5 days now. Um, I have not had internet, which again, I feel lucky that I have had electricity, so no complaints, but I won't have internet until Saturday. I was able to track down a place that does have internet. This is my lab. It's been restored here, so if you hear weird sounds in the background, it might be, whatever machinery is over here. This, for example, is a minus 80 Celsius freezer. It stores like blood and muscle tissue samples, so about 112 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. But yeah, that's where I'm at. You can see this is my workbench, and then we've got a ways back through there. So enough of me rambling. Let's get to the point. Basically, why I'm saying this is, as everything is falling apart here in Texas, people's pipes are freezing and bursting. The campus is actually so slick that people have just been ice skating on it. I'm from the eighth snowiest city in the United States, South Bend, Indiana, and including Alaska. Um, and I've never seen stuff this slick. They don't have like salt to actually like put down and keep it from being dangerous. So it's just a mess right now. My point is, I'm sorry that this is affecting you guys. I'm sorry, but I'm also not sorry. It's really out of my control. Um, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and push the exam back. So it was going to be at the tail end of this week. It's going to be at the beginning of next week. That's fine. I've built in extra bubble for if something crazy happened anyways. So I'm thinking it's going to open maybe Sunday and then close maybe Wednesday, just depending on how quickly I can get caught up in not just this, but my my main job here at Baylor, um, and other things. I got to catch up and make this exam. I haven't had time or the ability to really prepare for it yet. Um, so I'm thinking it's gonna be a mix between like multiple choice, true, false, and then some short answer. The short answer ones I know is what people seem to get scared about the most. Um, that's the one I would be least scared about. That's gonna be big concepts. If you've been paying attention, then you'll be able to write something down. It's more there just to kind of force you to sit down for a second and think about some of these concepts and answer the why are we doing this? What can we learn about what's going to happen in the future based off what's going to happen in the past? How does this connect to the job you want someday? That kind of stuff. I'll guide you through those thoughts with these questions. But the multiple choice. So, main things I want you to know. One, I care more about concepts than I do about specific dates or specific people. Unless it's someone who is just wildly important, and I don't know that we've had one of those figures yet, I'm not super concerned about, um, maybe like Plato. I would ask something about, but I'm not going to ask you about like the philosopher Cicero or about the father of sports medicine. No, I'd much rather you connect the concepts. So, what that looks like. So, for example, I've got a PowerPoint here to the side. That's why I'm looking off and kind of clicking. Um, be able to give me some of the definitions that are like, there's some core definitions that we need, like history. What's history? The study of change over time. It's probably a good definition that's just pretty simple for you guys to pick up. Know the types of history, that sort of stuff. But once we get to the philosophies, I want you to know the definitions of the big ideas, like metaphysics, the nature of reality, ontology. But also kind of tracing some of these threads throughout time. So, for example, just about all the civilizations we've talked about, one of the key concepts is war and hunting, right? Not until the Romans did some of this stuff. The games kind of transition away from what prepares us for war to what's actually leisurely. So knowing some of these changes, I'm going to probably ask most of my questions from the Greeks and the Romans. Now, the reason for this is the other cultures have unique things, and I want you to focus in and actually consider what makes this culture, say the Sumerians, different than the Egyptians. Well, the Sumerians thought that their only purpose was to serve the gods. The gods, as their civilization developed, just was replaced with the kings or the rulers. So they were there to serve the rulers. So body meant nothing because it was dispensable. No one cared about the body of an individual because they were just there to serve the gods, the rulers. Whereas once you move on, the Egyptians were a little less that way. Yeah, so the balance between mind and body, the Greeks were very body driven. Other ideas is, so there's the modernization theory that we talked about in week 1, where basically like throughout time there's some pretty predictable changes that'll occur. Early time periods really focused on small communities, small competitions. It's just your neighbors. It's not super intense. It's not specialized. Like, it's just whoever's around, they come and compete to compete. Very local, very family-driven, community-driven, and focused on like things that had to do with manual labor. As we move to modern times, like right now, we starting to get more global in our sport. So rather than you competing against your neighbors, many of you guys are student athletes, you compete against people all around the country, and those people have come from all over the world to come compete. It's very global. The sports that we play here in Texas are very similar to the sports you guys play in North Carolina, which are very similar to sports played in China or Europe or wherever, because sport is more global. People are more specialized now. It's not just a neighbor that you're watching play. No, you're watching someone who's practiced their whole life to compete in a sport. with that in mind, it's also very based off merit. So only the best get to go to these competitions, like the ones we watch on TV. It's not, you don't watch your neighbor on TV. No, you watch some person you've never met from across the world who's extremely good at this. That's who we watch and who we celebrate in our sport. Whereas pre-modern sports were just whoever was there. Understanding the changes over time, and actually not just understanding them, but tracking them through the cultures that we've talked about. And if you can sit down and you can trace that through time with these 5 chapters that we've talked about so far, then I think you'll get a long ways. Beyond that, again, I just want to stress, I'm not super concerned about dates, so don't waste your time memorizing, like, the different periods that were the Chinese dynasties. No, I'm more about concepts, so knowing that the early Chinese dynasties played these sports or had these beliefs, and then, later they developed boxing, and one of the big things in Chinese sports was the 6 arts. So archery was one of the 6 arts. The 6 arts came together to become the perfect gentleman. The perfect gentleman was a male or female, not just a male, who was able to be a very beneficial member of society because they were good at archery, they were good at riding horses, they were good at writing and math and traditions, and I'm forgetting my other one, but you get the idea. So understand that, like, what those things mean. Another thing is again, like I said, I'm going to focus a lot on the Greeks and Romans because I think they have more implications to our society now than, say, the Sumerians, because our society is taken more from the Greeks and Romans. So knowing that the Romans were more leisurely, and part of that is because they had the Stoic philosophy and Epicurean philosophies that really pushed personal happiness and being, the Romans were able to be successful because they had the Stoic philosophy where even in the face of death, they were fearless, they were serving the Roman civilization. So, yeah. Look at the Olympics a lot. So, like, the Romanization of the Olympics. So the Olympics were originally with the Greeks, where all these city-states paused war, came in, they competed, just men were allowed, and then as the Romans came, it became more leisurely. Women were allowed. They added sports, they added religious elements throughout time. Those were the Greeks and the Romans, but then they also added, like, science and philosophy and writing and painting into the Olympic Games. If you stick with my PowerPoints, I think that will be plenty sufficient. I don't need you to read every chapter of the book for the exam. In fact, if you look through the PowerPoints and if you've watched my videos, that should be sufficient. But I hope I've given you some idea of the way I think as I'm putting this together. If you have any specific questions, I really encourage you to reach out to me. Reach out to me via email, not OpenLMS. So OpenLMS messages I will not get because I'm just now getting self-service again. So until they fix the cell towers and everything melts, which will happen throughout the weekend, I believe, maybe into next week. Just a second. My wife's calling me. Let me... Okay. yeah, until that happens, I get very, very little cell internet service. Um, so if you just call me again, she just got off work. It's not important. I'll call her in a minute. But yeah, I'm only going to get email. That's my point. So I'll be able to respond. I have enough cell service for that, but not enough to get like on the internet, if that makes sense. So use that for now. Really encourage you to ask questions if you have them. I'm going to put together the groups and send out a message now. So hopefully by the time you see this video, you'll have seen those messages too. If not, reach out to me because that means something went wrong, which seems to be how this whole week's going. But yep, I think you guys will be good. Yeah, PowerPoints are a big piece because that's all we've really had so far. Have a good evening. Bye.